So what we'll do now is we're going to take these blocks and make them look like they're unlit. I know they're not glowing like in our effect, but they don't really look like power is disconnected to them. So we're just going to go up to Effect, Color Correction, and we're going to add in some take out some saturation. So we'll just bring that down to about 65. And what I can do here is just click on the effect hue and saturation, hit Control C, and I can actually go to the other logo and just hit Control V, and it'll paste that effect on top of it. Alright, great. So as our object comes into place, right about there, we're going to have the other logo come in and have it lit up. So we're going to drag our logo, we're going to call this lit, and we're going to copy the position of the original logo. So just click on logo, hit P, and hit copy. We're going to paste that to this logo lit. It'll snap it over to where it needs to be, and we also need the scale. So we'll click on scale, hit Control copy, click on logo lit, hit Control V. Alright, now our logo will match up exactly where it needs to be. So at this point, we're going to start animating the opacity of the lit. So drag this open, go down to opacity. We'll set it to 0 for now. We'll go over 2 frames and we'll set it up to, maybe we'll get up to 60% this time. And then almost right away, we'll have it drop down to nothing. Hold that for a few frames. Hit another key. And to go up and down through keys, I'm pressing page up and page down. We'll go forward a few keys. Raise it back up to 30 or maybe 50. I'm going to go forward 2 frames, have it drop down to 30, losing a little bit of power. Back up to 100. We'll have it drop out of 100 and then back up to 100, down maybe to 80, and then back up to 100. So just give it a little bit of a flickering, like just trying to get some power to it. So we'll watch how that looks here. Alright, perfect. Alright, so that's going to conclude bringing our 3D elements together. What we're going to need to do now is start bringing in some text here. So as that comes in, it looks like we're going to need more room. And our shadow and our character actually rendered images. So what we need to do is bring in the last frame of the sequence so we can hold it a bit longer. So we're going to go to File, Import, Import File, and we're going to grab the character's very last frame. I'll make sure we don't choose PNG sequence. And we also need its shadow. So File, Import, Shadow. Great. So what we'll do is we'll drag those out, put them on top of the other hammer. I'm going to hit Control K to go into my composition settings, and we're going to just change the duration of this from 8 to maybe 12 seconds. Hit OK. We'll just drag on this blue bar here. It will allow us to see more of our timeline. We'll just kind of clamp it down here. Okay, so we can hit Control A, hit the end button, or you can go to the very end of your timeline. And if you hit Control greater than box bracket, or, sorry, I believe it's Alt greater than box bracket, it will drag every still frame and solid to the very end of our timeline. But no, it didn't get this one because it was locked. So we'll just select that, press End, hold Alt, click on your greater box bracket. Alright, so what we need to do is get these stills to happen right at the end, opposed to staying there the whole time through the project. And as you can see, we have a bit of a black outline on top of our character here. So to get rid of that, we'll just go in and interpret the footage so that there's no black mat on it. So we'll interpret footage, main, set this to black, hit OK, and interpret footage for the shadow, set this to black, and hit OK. Perfect. So we'll go to the very last frame, and we're going to click on these 2 frames and hit Alt left or greater than box bracket. The last one we were using was the less than box bracket. I'm sure there's a better name for them. So what we're going to do is go into the effects for the shadow, copy the Gaussian blur, and we'll paint that or paste that onto the shadow still image. Alright, its opacity is off, and it's also on top of the character, should be underneath. Its opacity is off by a bit, so we'll just copy the opacity, which is 50, and we'll paste that onto the shadow as well. Alright, so what should happen is when we cycle between the very last frame of the sequence and then the next frame we're actually using stills, we shouldn't see any switching whatsoever. Alright, so now our character will actually hold his position for the rest of the timeline. And this will give us control so we can start adding in some text. So I'm going to hit Control A, and you can press any letter that controls a property of these layers, like position, and hit position again. It's just a quick way to close everything down. So I'm going to click on the text bar here, and we're going to click here, and just say Alan Monroe. And we'll set our text spacing to 0. Paste this over here. We'll Control D to duplicate this, bring it down, and we'll click on the text tool. We'll change this to online portfolio. Click on the black arrow here. And what we can do is adjust the scaling of this object just to kind of make like a subheading here. And we'll adjust its color so it's a little bit darker. So what will happen is, as that flickers on, we'll take these two, and we'll animate their opacity coming on. So right now they should be set to 0, and then maybe half a second later, they'll fade in. We'll actually make it a full second. And then followed by another text coming in for under construction. And for this, we'll go ahead and we'll separate out the, we want it to start right about here. And we'll take the text separation, just pull it out so it kind of fills the bottom area here. It's about 160. Let me just make sure that's nice and centered. Maybe make this one a little bit darker. Press T, change our opacity. So about a second later, it comes in. Add a key. I'm going to press J to go back to my previous key. K will go forward. Press J to go back, and we'll just drag the opacity back down. Alright. So there you go. That's the final animation for our cartoon hammer. What I'm going to do is go ahead and just add some sound effects in Premiere. Okay, so before I brought everything into Premiere, what I did is I went up to Composition, Add to Render Queue, or you can press Control-Shift/. Just have some older ones here. And in here I just chose what I wanted like to bring over, and I prefer to use JPEGs or PNGs until my final compression into a video. So I chose PNG, hit OK, and then just chose where I was going to output it and hit Render. So over in Premiere, I just imported the sequence much like I did for After Effects, brought it into my timeline, and I just started adding in some sound effects here and there just to bring it alive. So. Okay, so that's going to wrap up the series of tutorials. We've gone over modeling, creating materials and simple textures. We'll discuss briefly UV unwrapping. We've then gone ahead and created simple bone systems, plus a little bit more of a advanced system there for squash and stretch. And then we went ahead and rendered that out, animated it, pose to pose animation, using our curve editors to keep our keys to a very minimum, and allowing for some very smooth ease ins and outs. And then we rendered that whole sequence out, brought it into After Effects, threw in a little bit of effects like there for the logo, matched up our shadows, rendered them out in separate passes so we could have control over it. And then at the end we created our final output media, which I chose FLV, but you can choose whatever you prefer for your final output. So I hope you really enjoyed the tutorials. I had a lot of fun creating them. These are the first tutorials I made, so I know that the quality is a little bit lacking, especially in the sound. But if there's anything I didn't cover in this set of tutorials that you would like to have some questions to or I overlooked, please feel free to email me at info@alamino.com and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you have any suggestions for future tutorials, I would